Okay, welcome everyone to the first of our spring lecture series looking at Japan as a regional security actor. This module is part of a course on Japan's foreign and security policy, which is proposed by the Japan program newly established at the VUB. My name is Eva Peixova, and I have the pleasure to lead the Japan program together with my colleague Céline Pajon here present. What we're trying to do as part of the program is really to promote the debate in Europe on security issues that are of importance to the Indo-Pacific and to Japan from Japanese foreign security policy perspective, which is also why we wanted to open up these lectures that are originally designed for our master's students only to a wider audience. We thought it was a shame to keep them for ourselves. Before I pass the floor to our excellent speakers and moderator, a few housekeeping rules before we start. Be reminded that your microphone is automatically muted. You cannot see other participants and cannot be seen. If you have questions, please post them in the Q&A box on the top right of your screen. You can use the chat to discuss between you, but if you have questions, it is only in the Q&A box. So without further ado, I would like to pass the floor to Céline Pajon to introduce our lecturers, our distinguished speakers, and say a few words about today's topic. Enjoy the lecture.
Thank you, Eva. Welcome everyone to our first lecture on Japan as a regional security actor. And for this first lecture, we decided to focus on Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific vision, concept, or strategy, depending of the terminology you prefer. Why is that? Is it because it has been now 5 years since the Prime Minister Abe actually announced this free and open Indo-Pacific vision, the FOIP vision, and he announced that in Nairobi, Kenya, interestingly. And I believe this has been one of the big achievements of the Abe's mandate, at least in terms of foreign policy. And I believe the FOIP have been of very significance, great significance for not only Japan's foreign policy and diplomatic endeavor, because it's really demonstrating, I believe, a renewal in the Japan's dynamic and proactive role in the region. But also it has been a big diplomatic success for Japan. As you know, the free and open Indo-Pacific narrative or terminology have been endorsed by Japan's partners, beginning with the US under the Trump administration, but also Australia and India. And beyond Indo-Pacific, this terminology has now gained momentum all the way in Europe. As you know, several European countries have already published their own approach or strategy regarding the Indo-Pacific. So now the Indo-Pacific terminology, geopolitical concept is really key, is shaping the perception of the country in the region and beyond the region. I think that the success of the FOIP vision also results from its polymorphic nature and its flexibility. It is about economic prosperity and connectivity, but also about maritime security and rules-based order. It encompasses unilateral initiatives, such as the Quad, but also insists on upholding an inclusive multilateralism. As I said, the FOIP is referred to as a strategy, but also a concept and a vision from time to time. So this morning, we will precisely discuss the FOIP conceptual evolution and how Japan has been implementing this vision in the region. And we are very fortunate to have one of the best experts with us this morning to do just that. And I must say, I'm a big fan of his work, so I'm very delighted to have him in particular. So I will introduce now Kei Koga. He's an assistant professor at the Public Policy and Global Affairs program at the Nanyang Technological University in Singapore. His research focus on international relation theory, international security institution, all things Indo-Pacific, including Japan's approach in the region. And of course, he published a number of articles on the topic, including his latest one in International Affairs last year, titled Japan's Indo-Pacific Question, Countering China or Shaping a New Regional Order, question mark. So after his presentation, we asked Michael Reiterer, who is distinguished professor at our Center for Security, Diplomacy and Strategy of the Brussels School of Governance, to provide some comments on this. As you know, Michael is a seasoned academic and diplomat, and he will provide his comments as both an expert and a practitioner on Japan's FOIP strategy and the implication for Europe. So before we start, let me encourage you once again to type your question in the Q&A box for our speaker. We want to make the discussion as lively and interactive as possible, and we will do our best with Eva to make sure that your questions are addressed in the discussion part of the webinar. So without further ado, I will now give the floor to Professor Koga for his presentation for about 45 minutes. So Kei, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kind introduction, Céline. And then also, I'd like to thank the Eva, as well as the Japan program at the VUB for organizing this the lecture, and then the having me to have the opportunity to discuss the Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific strategy or the concept. Before going into the today's lecture, I'd like to share my screen. I'm having the PowerPoint, so I'll share the PowerPoint here. And I think I hope everybody can watch this. Okay, so I'm as introduced. My name is Kei Koga from the Nanyang Technological University, Singapore, and then my kind of initial research interest is on the East Asian security or regional security and then regional institutions. And then when I was actually doing the research on the ASEAN and then also the ASEAN's connection with the Northeast Asian countries, then suddenly like 2014 or so, there was the big kind of the buzzword called the Belt and Road Initiative by China. And then this concept, Belt and Road Initiative, BRI, became the really popular in the Southeast Asian countries, and everybody knew what was actually BRI, I mean, infrastructure development, and so on and so forth. But then the next 2016, there was some kind of the policy doctrine called Free and Open Indo-Pacific Strategy, Japan. And then I kind of wondered to what extent this is known in the Southeast Asia, and then nobody actually knew about it. So I was kind of wondering how impactful this Indo-Pacific strategy or Japan's free and open Indo-Pacific can be and could be in the future. And then now like we are actually seeing lots of the people talking about it. And then it came to me that why this happens, what actually things developed during the from the 2016 to the 2020 or 2021. So this is a kind of the one big research puzzle I had. And then I was actually following up the conceptual evolution of Japan's free and open in the Pacific. So let me just quickly briefly introduce what Japan's free and open in the Pacific FOIP is. So the free and open in the Pacific strategy was actually launched in the August 2016, as the Céline actually articulated. And at that time, the Prime Minister Abe was in the Kenya, attending at the TCAT conference, Tokyo International Cooperation on the African Development, and he made a speech about the connectivity between the African and the Asian continents, and also between the Pacific and then Indian Ocean, Indian Oceans. So these are two oceans and two continents. Connectivity were very important for Japan, and then he actually emphasized this is the geographical areas that Japan needs to focus on in terms of the stability, security, and prosperity. So the Japan actually started to talk about the concept from at this point. And now, if you go to the Japan's Ministry of Foreign Affairs, you could actually easily examine or study what it is, because there was the concept paper on that. And then in that concept paper, it says there are four elements. The one is the making in the Pacific region free and open as an international public goods. And the second one is to ensure the rules-based international order. And third one, acknowledging the importance of the ASEAN's centrality and unity. And the fourth one, this doesn't really say explicitly, but then it's actually characteristics. It's the non-exclusivity. That means the Japan can cooperate with any country that supports this idea. So these are the four elements of the Japan's free and open Pacific. Now, there are to that end, Japan actually wants to do some action, make some actions to that, and there are three pillars for that. The one is the promotion and establishment of the rules of law, freedom of navigation, free trade area, etc. And the second one is the economic prosperity, which include connectivity and also the economic partnership. Third one is the commitment for peace and stability. That is the capacity building program to the developing countries for the maritime law enforcement, and also humanitarian assistance and disaster relief, capacity building, etc. So these are the basic kind of ideas of the FOIP, current FOIP. But now, from the 2020, we had the two big kind of the international disruption. One is the obviously is COVID-19. The COVID-19 actually changed the way we conduct diplomacy, and then the also the it actually disrupted the conventional diplomatic agenda, and then the diplomats couldn't actually meet with each other face to face, and then maybe having difficulties in conducting the subtle negotiations or so. So that is the COVID-19 still lingering, and then the we are not sure to what extent this is going to, I mean, how long this difficulty is going to last, but then still now like 2021, it actually has some impact. And then second one is the intensification of the US-China rivalry. This is not actually started from the year 2020. It was actually it happened before that, and under the Trump administration, the United States actually took the firm position against China, and then regarded China as a revisionist country. So in that sense, the US-China rivalry actually is still going on, and then even under the Biden administration, the US has the strong policy against China too. So with this, the certain question is that how Japan actually deals with these kind of two big international events or international phenomena. and how do they actually deal with these two issues in terms of managing its free and open Indo-Pacific strategy or concept. So in order to do this, we need to understand the origin of Japan's kind of free and open Indo-Pacific concept, and then also how it evolved, and then how how has Japan been actually implementing this FOIP vision over time. So my kind of presentation focuses on these two things. First, the why question about the FOIP's concept, and the second one is the how Japan has been implementing the FOIPs. And then third, and then lastly, in conclusion, I will actually talk a little bit about the challenges that Japan is going to probably face, or Japan is facing currently in terms of the executing the FOIP vision. So let's start. The origin of FOIP is actually the FOIP was created. The concept was created in 2016 and August. And before that, there were two big strategic challenges to the international order by China. That is one is the BRI. As I mentioned, Belt and Road Initiative became the big kind of buzzword to the regions like Southeast Asia, South Asia, Middle East, and also Eastern Europe. And the BRI actually provided the infrastructure development with the Chinese standard, which is not necessarily accompanied with the international standards. And then there was certain concern from the development community, but then still, this is actually really popular because China didn't put much the conditionalities for the development assistance. And in that sense, China was actually becoming one of the biggest development assistant countries, and it investment bank. Oh, sorry, investment bank in the 2014. Sorry, oh, it's actually 2014, and then also they actually had the big kind of projects with the developing countries in the Southeast Asia. Most notably, Japan was actually competing with China over the Indonesia's high-speed railway between Bandung and also the Jakarta, and then at the end of the day, China actually won. But then Japan actually made a lot of effort to sell its quality of the railroad, and also the feasibility of the executing this kind of development project. And then Japan thought it could actually win the project, but at the end of the day, China actually won. So in that sense, Japan was actually concerned about China's increasing the influence over the many countries in these terms of the development assistance, and then that was becoming the one big challenge against the current international order, because the Chinese development assistance didn't necessarily follow the international standard. So that's the one. And the second one is obviously people already know its maritime assertiveness. In East China Sea, particularly near the Senkaku Islands, the Chinese presence was increasing from the 2010 when the Chinese fishing boat actually crashed with the two Japanese Coast Guard ships. And then also 2012, Japan transferred the ownership of the four Senkaku Islands to the state, so-called nationalization. But then this actually provoked China, and China tried to use this kind of incident as a justification to increase its presence in the Senkaku Islands. So in that sense, the tension between Japan and China arose. And also at the same time, if you look down south, the South China Sea has also had the increasing tension. China was making the land reclamation and also the so-called militarization. They put the military assets on those kind of the facilities they constructed in the South China Sea. And then the also the 2016 July, when the South China Sea arbitration the award tribunal award between the China and the Philippines came in, the Philippines claim was actually justified by the ruling, but then the China immediately rejected these rulings and then didn't actually follow the ruling. So in that sense, that was the thing that was actually perceived that the China was also the challenging the current international order. And in these two, actually, in this context, the Prime Minister Abe launched the this free and open Indo-Pacific strategy. Having said that, this is actually was really vague. And then the basically what the they were trying to say, and then the was not really clear. The basic thing is the one objective is to maintain and strengthen the existing international order, and then the I think international order in that the statement including such various the fundamental values, rules of law, no use or threat of force, sovereignty, peaceful resolution of international disputes, etc. And then the also the it's the again like the core geographical scope is expanding from the Pacific Ocean to the Indian Ocean. So these are the kind of basic idea of the free and open in the Pacific at the beginning. And the there are also three things focus they try to kind of pursue. That is the maritime security, fundamental values, and the economic development and connectivity. These are basically the things that Japan has been doing, had been doing. So it was not necessarily the kind of new thing that Japan had advocated. And for the institutional framework, I mean, to pursue the free and open in the Pacific, they actually, Japan emphasized the importance of the strategic ties with the three countries, with the Australia, India, and the United States. So looking back, I think they are actually Abe was still thinking about the reactivating the Quad, and then it was actually part of his vision because before he became the prime minister in 2012, he actually wrote an op-ed called the Asia Strategic Security Diamond. And then in there, that he was emphasizing the importance of the institutionalizing the Quad. So then in the it actually envisioned the FOIP concept at the beginning envisioned reactivating the Quad. So in this context, probably like we could actually see the FOIP was pretty much kind of geared toward the countering the Chinese influence. And then I think to some extent that could be true. And then probably I could say the FOIP's the strategic direction at the beginning is the US in, China down, Australia, India, ASEAN up. So that means the United States under Trump administration, which actually considered American first. So if they didn't consider in the Pacific as the international public good, also, then it might not actually commit itself to the area. So by using the FOIP concept, Japan actually wanted to United States involved. And then China down, it does not mean that the China was actually needs to be counterbalanced or like China needs to be contained. It is more like the China needs to be constrained by the international law or the current international norms. And in order to do that, the international committee needs to strengthen and then the advocate for the existing international order or international rules and norms. And this is why the China needs to be constrained because of the Chinese kind of increasing assertiveness. And the also the regional states like Australia, India, and then also the ASEAN. I think these are the very important actors in the region. Still, they have the many the difficulty encountering China. So in that sense, they need to actually they cooperate with each other and then try to kind of strengthen the current international order. But again, these are the kind of first the strategic direction. And then there was some kind of overlappings between the countering China and also the facilitating or like maintaining the international order. So in 2016, the concept was pretty vague. We don't know which way the free and open in the Pacific is going. Okay. Wait. Sorry. Right. So before going into the more specific, I just would like to kind of give you some idea how the Japan's the FOIP concept evolved. If you take a look at the left side, the beginning, the first map here, it was actually more emphasizing the Indian Ocean, because I think the Indian Ocean was the kind of the area that like Japan's newly engaging, and then they actually tried to create a strong tie with India, so they wanted to emphasize here. And then the Western Pacific is the kind of region Japan has been engaging, so it gets the little bit the kind of right side. But in the next one, many people actually ask is it actually only the Western Pacific, not like entire Pacific? And then Japan actually started to change the conceptual map to use the more kind of broader map that includes the entire the Pacific Ocean. And then the next one is when you create this map, the second map, then the many countries in the Southeast Asia were wondering like what the role of ASEAN here, and then is role of these ASEAN actually neglected, or how do you locate the ASEAN in this FOIP concept? And then the Japan actually started to put the ASEAN in the middle. And later on, because of the many kind of responses they got, they actually started to use the kind of very big map like this. And then now, like I think this is the part of the map they've been using. So the emphasis, some kind of the implication of the FOIP has been kind of changing since the 2016. So let me just kind of go into the specific about the how Japan's FOIP changed from the 2016. Again, as I said, the 2016 core geographical concepts, its geographical concept ranged from the Asia to the Africa, and also the Pacific Oceans to the ocean to the Indian Ocean. And then they also wanted to, because emphasizing the international order, they wanted to emphasize the fundamental values such as the democracy, rule of law, and human rights. So there was the certain kind of implication about the domestic governance, domestic governance in the Pacific area as well. Obviously the economic development and connectivities are important, and then people are actually trying to use the Japan's leverage of the ODA to implement the economic side of the FOIP. But one really big thing happens in the 2017. That is in November 2017, Japan held the summit meeting with the United States. And then what happened is that the United States actually started to incorporate this concept, free and open in the Pacific, into its own strategy. So when President Trump came into Asia for the Asian summits like East Asia Summit or the APEC, he started to use the Indo-Pacific and then never used the Asia-Pacific. So in that sense, the US was actually taking this concept and then internalize it into its own strategy. And then in that summit, Japan and then the United States agreed with the three pillars. That is one is the promotion and establishment of rule of law, freedom of navigation, and free trade. Second one is the pursuit of the economic prosperity. And the third one is commitment for peace and stability. So this is actually, these are the pretty much the same the three pillars that the current the FOIP has. But one kind of difference between the 2017 FOIP and then 2016 the FOIP is that there was no kind of emphasis on the domestic governance. It never actually talked about the democracy or human rights. Obviously, the United States in its own kind of FOIP strategy, it emphasized the human rights or democracy. But Japan actually started to kind of not like denying or like not actually rejecting it, but then trying to de-emphasize it. So I think that's the kind of one big the differences between the original FOIP and also the FOIP 2017 to 2018. Non-exclusivity actually came in, but then the also the Japan's kind of focus started to be on the more infrastructure development. 2018 to 2019, there was some kind of the minor changes as well. As the Céline also said in the introduction, free and open in the Pacific strategy actually became the free and open in the Pacific FOIP. So they actually dropped the strategy. This is because when Japan had the meeting with the some of the ASEAN member states in the 2018, then those countries actually expressed some concern about the term strategy, because if the great power like Japan use the term the strategy, that connoted the some kind of targeting the third country, and that could be the China. So in that sense, if they are using Japan has been using the strategy, it would be a little bit difficult for ASEAN to support it. So then Japan actually started to drop the strategy, and then they started to use the FOIP instead. And then so we call it like FOIP concept or the FOIP vision. And then also because this FOIP concept didn't really have the mention or explain the role of ASEAN, Japan started to emphasize the importance of the ASEAN centrality and the neutrality in the Pacific. So Japan was actually supporting ASEAN in this FOIP concept, and then they didn't actually neglect the ASEAN in the concept. And also there was some kind of bilateral the relation between the Japan and China changed because Japan started to not accommodating, but then trying to kind of persuade China to follow the international rules and norms. And then in that sense, if the China follows that, Japan is ready to actually cooperate with China. So this was actually interesting move, because Prime Minister Abe was pretty having the really strong stance against the China before, but then when he made a speech in I think the June or May 2018, then it was 2017, he said that if China is following the international standard in the development assistance to the developing countries, Japan is ready to cooperate with China in the third country. And then China actually took this statement seriously, and then they started to have the bilateral meeting, and then they actually started to create a MOU about the cooperation in the third country. So in that sense, the Japan's kind of stance toward China actually a little bit shifted. Also, geographical expansion too. The FOIP concept became popular, and then some of the European countries, particularly UK and France, were interested, and then they started to think about the potential area of cooperations with Japan or with the countries in the Indo-Pacific. And then today, from the 2019 to the current 2021, there was a lot of discussion about the free and open Indo-Pacific institutional arrangement. As we can see, the trend, the Quad, the framework among the Japan, United States, Australia, India, started to be institutionalized. It was actually before it was at the senior official levels, but then it actually turned to be the ministerial meetings, and then there was some rumor saying that the Quad could be could have the summit meeting as well. And also there was some the Quad plus actually the meeting with the regional countries like South Korea and also the New Zealand, and then the other countries on the non-traditional security issue, particularly the COVID-19 as well. ASEAN also created the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific, AOIP, and then Japan is trying to find some kind of synergy with this concept. And at this point, we could actually say that the FOIP is actually geared toward to create the order. So building the order building is the fundamental objective. It's not actually the countering China, or it's not countering the specific country, but then Japan wants to create a certain order, and if their country violates the order, then probably like the Japan or like other countries need to take certain actions. But then the basic stance on the FOIP is to create the order, rule making, and also the coalition building the movement. And then in this sense, we could actually see some of the projects provided by the some country, the United States, or like Australia or Japan, such as the Blue Dot Network or the Osaka Track. I'll talk a bit more about this later on. So why this actually the concept evolved over time, and why it was actually really abstract at the beginning. I think in a nutshell, Japan has been actually conducting the tactical hedging. So tactical hedging is the kind of the terminology I created. It is the ambiguous temporal declaratory policy doctrine that helps an actor buy time to determine whether the status quo policy will be appropriate for ensuring its own security in long term. Why is Japan doing this, or has Japan been doing this? Because there are certain kind of benefit. The first one is the signaling. By doing this, Japan could indicate the potential policy shift in the future. So at the beginning, Japan has been focusing on East Asia, but it wants to actually expand its strategic horizon to the Indo-Pacific, and then see how the other regional actors or regional countries respond to that. And then also Japan wants to see the Japan's kind of new role in the Indian Ocean, and then how India is actually perceiving it, or how the other regional countries responded. So signaling is really important because they want to they can actually draw some of the response from the regional countries. And then because it's really abstract, the concept itself is really abstract, you could actually modify when there's a certain kind of negative responses coming from the regional countries, you could actually modify. So for example, at the beginning, the FOIP was not emphasizing the ASEAN much. And then, but then when ASEAN actually claimed what's the role of ASEAN, then Japan actually started to include ASEAN's role, and then they actually emphasized the importance of the ASEAN centrality. And so this this is a kind of the benefit they could get. And then they wanted to actually see how the regional countries reacted. And then because they don't want to create some of the policy doctrine which could be opposed by the many regional countries. But at the same time, there's a cost because it actually creates a misunderstanding. It's so abstract, so it could create a misunderstanding and a misperception, perhaps miscommunication too. I mean, even the Japan itself doesn't really know which way it was going, so that even when like they talk about it, they might not actually know what was actually the more basic principles or like the basic important kind of the implementation action how they could actually execute. So in that sense, it's really abstract and then trigger the misunderstanding. And then also it could be less effective if nobody actually draw attention. Even if Japan says we are going to create a free and open Pacific region, and then nobody actually cares, then nobody actually knows what Japan is doing. So what is most important is they have to have certain kind of big media attention also. And then Japan was to some extent lucky because in 2017, the United States actually took over, and then the US was actually emphasizing the importance of free and open in the Pacific. And people started to actually examine it, and then people actually started to understand its actual concept was coming from Japan. So in that sense, they actually could draw the attention, but then it was actually partly contingent because the United States actually took it seriously. And there was a risk too, because if it's so flexible, the concept itself was flexible. So if you don't consistently say the same thing, or if you don't kind of maintain, if you're actually seen as inconsistent, then people would actually say, oh, free and open Pacific is nothing because the Japan can say one thing today and then the other thing or another thing tomorrow. So you have to at least maintain the credibility. So these are the costs. And also I think I would like to add one thing is if the people started to kind of stop talking about it, then concept is not going to evolve because the people are not going to pay attention to that, and then people they just kind of forget about it. So conceptual framework will decay. So Japan still need to talk about this continuously if Japan wants to take this kind of FOIP as the one of the Japan's fundamental foreign policy tool. So this is why the Japan has been kind of at first the ambiguous about the concept, and then now it's getting more and more concrete. So there's a certain kind of development. So now I can move just really quickly about the practice and implementation, because this is really kind of messy field. There are so many kind of projects and so many programs that Japan has been doing. And then it is basically kind of mixed bag. But then because some of the project has been done before the concept of the FOIP came out. So basically what the people are actually saying at the beginning of the FOIP concept strategy, I mean FOIP, free and open Pacific strategy, people were saying this is just kind of repacking what Japan has been doing. So again, as I said, most of the Japan's projects in the FOIP have been already created prior to the FOIP in the 2016, and then people will say just kind of nothing really new. There are good news and bad news. Good news is a big conceptual framework like FOIP helps streamlining the Japan's foreign policy project and then gives some kind of strategic meaning to each project. So the people would understand what actually what kind of the project they are actually doing, and then what is the kind of big purpose for the each project. But bad news is no particular change would occur because if the current project just served for the FOIP, the objective or the strategy, then there's nothing else you could do. So I mean, there's no particular change you need to make, and then nothing really happened. So it's just kind of conceptual exercise also. So at the beginning, people kind of quickly dismiss the FOIP is probably not going to survive, and then so on and so forth. But now it survived, and the question is that so? Is that actually the repackaging the what Japan has been doing in the 2021? So I wanted to actually go through the each pillar that the FOIP concept provided. That is the three pillar. One is the promotion and establishment of the rule of law, etc. That is the basically the international order making. And then the second one is the pursuit of the economic prosperity. And third one is the commitment for the peace and stability. I just kind of, because the time constraint, I just go quickly about this. But then what I actually want to say is that there was a certain kind of the project that the Japan actually created after the FOIP concept was launched. And then these actually made certain kind of differences. And then these actually added some values of the FOIP concept too. And most fundamentally, I think I would say the one of the biggest kind of achievement or outcome of the FOIP was the creation or institutionalization of the Quad. So 2016, the Japan actually created the certain kind of trying to strengthen the strategic tie with the obviously United States and Australia, India. And then 2018, like they also incorporated the ASEAN centrality. And then they emphasized the ASEAN a lot on the paper and also in the diplomatic interactions, but quietly they actually try to institutionalize the Quad. And then even now, actually it provided the some opportunity to create the so-called Quad Plus. So if you take a look at this, the table, Japan and also the three other countries, Quad countries, actually had the already 10 meetings from the 2017. And then mostly they were senior level, but there are already kind of two foreign ministerial level. And then it actually serves as the kind of information sharing device among the four countries. And because their location is the geographically, they are located in the part of the important area of the Indo-Pacific. It actually increased the situation awareness in Indian Ocean and also in the Pacific Ocean as well. And also even though there are certain kind of subtle differences in the policy, but then I think if you could actually share the information, then you could understand how the other countries could react if the one country take the certain kind of position in the maritime security or HADR or and so forth. So it could actually help devise a really good, well-informed state strategy for each country. So even though it's still being institutionalized, but then I think like that actually helps a lot for countries to devise the state strategy. Also the issue-based the kind of the conference like the counter COVID-19 actually promoted the creation of the Quad Plus. So the example is March 2020 and March 2020. March 2020, Quad actually had the a meeting with the New Zealand, South Korea, and Vietnam about how to deal with the COVID-19, and also the May. It had the cooperation with Brazil, Israel, and South Korea as well. So this kind of institutional building or institutional institutional creation in the Indo-Pacific is a part of the product, the outcome that like the Japan's FOIP. And secondly, the commitment for peace and stability. This is actually the most of the project they had was based on what they were doing. But then there were certain kind of project that the Japan newly created, such as the short-term deployment in the Pacific, the Indo-Southeast Asian deployment, ISEAD, 2018, and also Indo-Pacific Deployment, IPD, 2019-2020, actually the self-defense for maritime self-defense force went into the Indian Ocean, and then also the South China Sea to actually do the some kind of port visit, and then also the quick joint military exercise with the neighboring countries too. So in that sense, this is actually new, and it increases the Japanese military presence there. Coast Guard cooperation happened, but these are actually still ongoing. But the Coast Guard also has some kind of international visibility too. They actually send out the Coast Guard staff and then ships to do the port visit to the particular country, and then do the some joint training as well. I'll skip just the list of this. And also the pursuit of economic prosperity. This is really some of the people are really interested in, but then the I think the FOIP concept on this aspect is actually coming from the Japan's initiative in 2015. That is a partnership for quality infrastructure. And then they actually wanted to double down the international standard that actually supported. And then in order to facilitate healthy infrastructure development, they have to maintain openness, transparency, economic viability, and financial sustainability too. So, and then the what's new is probably like they want to internationalize this idea. And then the Japan is has been advocating importance of this quality infrastructure in the many international conference, G7, G20, and so on. The other thing, big thing is the digital connectivity. This is not, I don't think like this is the formally or clearly incorporated in the FOIP concept, but like in terms of connectivity, this area is going to be the big part for the new FOIP, because the Japan has been pushing toward the kind of rule-making framework of the digital connectivity in the Indo-Pacific and beyond. And the G20 in 2019, Japan actually talks about the Osaka truck. They talks about the data-free flow with the trust. That is the one of the kind of rule-making device throughout the WTO. But we can actually talk about this the issue in the Q&A. So my kind of the answer to the first question is FOIP still repackaging the what Japan has been doing. Not anymore, because as I said again, the institutional arrangement changed. Quad has been institutionalized, and then Quad Plus is emerging. Peace and security. Japan's visibility in the Indo-Pacific is actually increasing. Also, like Japan is putting more efforts on the digital connectivity. So the FOIP actually went beyond what Japan has been doing before. So now the conclusion is these two things. Again, like the Japan's FOIP concept is evolving, and then the Japan has been implementing its FOIP, and then it's a new thing. And also the last thing, the challenge. Just quickly, sorry, just quickly because of the time constraint. There are several challenges we face. The one is the institutional arrangement in the Indo-Pacific. Quad institutionalized, that's great, but then how do you actually complement it with the ASEAN centrality? ASEAN has actually has been trying to be the central role in the East Asia or in the Pacific regionalism. And if that's the case, how do you actually make the Quad compatible with the ASEAN? So that's the one important thing. And also the other thing is the Great Power rivalry. The Chinese and also the other kind of Quad countries are actually having more intensive kind of competition. And then are we going into if we are going into the kind of new Cold War, new actually rivalry, then how Japan actually cope with this under the banner of the FOIP. And then third one is the Suga administration, the current administration new administration is more preoccupied with the domestic issues like countering the COVID-19, also the organizing the Olympic, and then the domestic politics as well. General election is coming up this year. So in that sense, is there any kind of new idea that the Suga administration can push forward for the improving the FOIP? We don't know. So I think like these are the challenges Japan is going to face. And then we kind of I want to actually discuss these issues in the Q&A. Thank you very much, and sorry for taking a bit long time for this.
Hi. Thank you very much, Kei. It has been a really great, very illuminating presentation, I think, very comprehensive too. So it's kind of tour de force to have shown the various dimensions of the FOIP, and also to try to provide a kind of theoretical framework in which to think this strange kind of diplomatic beast, so to say. So now I would like to turn to Michael Reiterer for his comments on the presentation. Michael, you as a diplomat, you have extensive experience in Asia. Your last position was in Republic of Korea. You also had a previous position in other countries. So I was wondering what was your assessment of the reception, the perception of Japan's FOIP in Asia, in various countries in Asia, and maybe adding a word on the Republic of Korea. What is the reception of FOIP in the Republic of Korea? And maybe that's also a question for Kei. Is there a place for Korea in Japan's FOIP? You mentioned it briefly as part of the Quad Plus initiative, but I would be interested to know more about that. So Michael, we are waiting for your comment on this, and to provide also a European perspective on the Indo-Pacific.
Well, thank you very much. My pleasure to be here with you. Yes, I will start perhaps with a personal remark. First time I was posted in Japan was in 1985. And if I look at the development of Japan, so I'm quite happy that we have the possibility to discuss Japanese foreign policy ideas and concepts, because that's a new development, that Japan becomes a more active player. And I think we can see that always if we have a name to associate with leadership. I think the Prime Ministers Nakasone, Koizumi, and Abe brought forward the foreign policy, and made Japan a more active player. I think Kei described it nicely, that the Indo-Pacific, which I think started with this quality infrastructure already in 2015, when Japan committed something like 110 billion in reply to the Chinese initiative, brought movement. And also Prime Minister Abe and his foreign ministers became active in foreign policy, and I think filled also a certain void which was then created when the United States seemed to retreat from Asia and from a value-based policy. So I always had the impression that the 2017 summit with the United States was perhaps a mixed blessing, because overtaking the concept and putting it into a containment of policy of China I think necessitated quite some explaining and stressing on the Japanese side that it is open. And Kei also mentioned that the term strategy was dropped in order to make sure that this openness message is maintained, which is, of course, I think will remain problematic because the great power rivalry and competition with China is a focal point for this initiative, but also other initiatives. I think I like this tactical hedging concept which you mentioned. It also means a little bit to try to be everybody's darling, which is of course difficult. There are moments where you have to make a choice and where you cannot be everybody's darling. Everybody wants to be, but I think that's not how diplomacy works at the end. Of course, also values is an important issue, but there realism always kicks in. And we see how do we deal with China's human rights violations? How do we deal with Myanmar right now, where Japan has considerable economic interests? Will it overcome the economic interests and take a strong position on what's going on? And it's getting worse day by day. We also have to see what's going on in Hong Kong. We have the looming Taiwan issue. So we have quite some hotspots where the Indo-Pacific is in the center, as well as the South China Sea. So I think this is something which we have to face. And as I have served as my last post as ambassador to Korea, that was is one of the missing elements, because the relationship between Korea and Japan needs improvement from a strategic point of view, from a tactical point of view, and I think there both sides have to make efforts. And on the 1st of March, I think President Moon Jae-in gave a rather opening and soft speech. I hope that Prime Minister Suga also jumps on that wagon, because that would be in the strategic interest. Now let me just say a word about institutions. That's quite important. You underlined correctly the important role of Quad is playing, and talks about Quad Plus. But how can we bring in the European side? I think the whole Indo-Pacific will be part also of the transatlantic discussions, but we also have to see that we bring it in our discussions with Asia in general, but with Japan in particular, because Japan so far is the only country where the European Union has signed a connectivity partnership. And the connectivity strategy of the European Union is probably the closest you can get to an Indo-Pacific strategy right now. But an Indo-Pacific strategy on the European level is under preparation, and the date for discussion would be the April Foreign Affairs Ministers meeting. And there, the European Union can actually build on already existing papers. We have France. Let me just see very quickly if I can share that with you. Okay. Well, we have a paper by France. France, of course, has a particular position and situation. It has territories in the Asia Pacific. It regards itself as a resident power. France has here identified areas of particular tension. We also, just to fill everybody in, Germany has already published policy guidelines for the Indo-Pacific region. Germany will send probably this year for the first time a frigate, the Hamburg, to the region, and also the Dutch have published a paper. I don't want to go into analysis and of course the UK as a former member and an important power is active in the region. Well, this is the EU connectivity strategy, which will, I think, feed into the strategy, which we will see soon. But there Japan plays an important part, and therefore I was underlining we have to see that we don't have institutions on the one hand which have no links with Europe, and that's a little bit the danger which I was seeing, and I would like to flag that. There is, of course, also the very strong economic interests on the European side. We have to see how the various FTAs and those regional FTAs fit in. It's the issue of creating standards and norms, what we call the Brussels effect. The different concepts will we see in the post-pandemic time, a Green Deal and blue economy for recovery. And last but not least, we also have the political implications, because the security between Europe and Asia is indivisible, and therefore there the European Union takes this comprehensive approach. But therefore, I just would like to underline the importance of links from the institutional point of view, in order to make sure that the strategic partnership between the European Union and Japan can make a contribution. But the strategic partnerships of the European Union, which are with China, with India, with Korea and with ASEAN, they have to play together so that we don't fall into the trap of silos. So my plea is for a comprehensive approach, an inclusive approach, an open approach, and the open approach cannot be limited to the Indo-Pacific, because the interest of other partners, European partners, in the Indo-Pacific is clear and evident. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael, for the great comments. And you also raise a bunch of questions for Kei, that some of them are actually overlapping with the many questions we received, very interesting one. So for the sake of time, I will try to gather them thematically and then ask them to Kei. Several of them, so that Kei, you can try to start thinking about the questions, and of course you are free to answer them in the order that you prefer, or maybe just avoid some that you find too complicated. So maybe to follow up on what Michael said about making choices and not being everybody's darling, and the question of values in particular. Also, one question referred to the current situation in Myanmar. Difficult one. We know that Japan has strong bonds with Myanmar, a lot of investment, lot of Japanese companies there. There is an historical also privileged relation between the two countries, and as you underline, Kei, values, democracy, human rights are a significant part of Japan's FOIP. So what can Japan do in this regard? Sorry, can Japan use any leverage to try to shape, to influence the situation in Myanmar? Is it in Japan's interest at all? Another question is related to the human rights situation in China, what's going on in Hong Kong and the Xinjiang. We discussed at some point the opportunity for Japan to adopt a kind of Magnitsky Act to try maybe to impose sanctions when needed on China. So what is your assessment about this? About making choices and take side and make difficult decision. Maybe one question in the Q&A related to Taiwan, and what would be Japan's stance in case of a Chinese military aggression on Taiwan. And this is quite sensitive, but if you can give some element on this. Michael referred to the Japan-ROK relation, and I also touched upon this. So yeah, what is the ROK role? ROK, do you see still the ROK as a like-minded partners? What role do you see the ROK playing in the Indo-Pacific, or to help to realize the Indo-Pacific vision? Another point, sorry, on Europe and bringing Europe to the Indo-Pacific, or working with Europe in the Indo-Pacific. Prime Minister Abe has been quite active to reach out to Europe, and we've been very important momentum in the relation. But what about the Indo-Pacific? Where do you see the convergence and the divergence of vision and perception between Europe and Japan on this? And there is one particular question regarding NATO. I don't know if you have a specific views on this, also to engage with NATO. Do you think NATO would be a relevant and important actor to commit in the Indo-Pacific? What is Japan's views on that? So I would like to stop for now with this bunch of questions, and I will come back to you with a second round. And of course, Michael, you are also very much welcome to step in and to reply to some of the questions. Maybe you have something to say also regarding NATO, and also how it can engage in the region.
Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you for the your kind of interesting questions. Lots of questions. I'm not sure like if I could actually respond to all of them, but I'll try. Let me just kind of start with the human rights and democracy. I think the Japan is obviously the respecting the human rights and then the democratic values, so that the Japan actually raised the expressed concern about the Myanmar situation. But whether or not like Japan is going to impose the sanction on the Myanmar is actually really the big question. This is because not only their economic interest, but also I think the Japan's approach to the democratization and the human rights has been the different from those the methods that the United States or the European countries take. So they are not like immediately go impose the sanctions, and they are not immediately actually condemn the situation. It's more like kind of Asian way, like the ASEAN. ASEAN has been actually raising their concern, but then it emphasized the political stability rather than the democratization of human rights. I think Japan's stance is more geared toward the facilitating the democracy and then the human rights, but its approach is the kind of through the engagement. So if that's the case, I think the what Japan fears is if Japan actually cut the tie with the Myanmar, and then Japan the Myanmar is going to be isolated, and then again like this actually creates a certain opportunity probably for China to get closer to the Myanmar, and then that could actually give the more kind of the political leverage over the regional institutions like ASEAN, because the ASEAN works as the kind of a consensus decision-making procedure. If Myanmar refuses some kind of the discussion in the ASEAN, then like they can't talk about it. So if that's the case, then the probably Japan, even though like Japan continuously emphasize the restoration of the democracy and then the protection of the human rights, then Japan needs to actually think about it. And then because otherwise it could actually trigger to divide the region. So I think that's Japan is kind of trying to wait and see for now. And then if really there is a certain kind of decisive event happens in Myanmar, like the genocide or so, and then if the Japan can no longer actually wait and take the wait and see strategy or so, maybe like Japan could actually do something. Probably, I don't know, like imposing the obviously the diplomatic condemnation, and then if the situation gets grave, then probably they would put some kind of the sanction too. But again, unless that, I think the Japan is more kind of hesitant to do something about it. So that's the Myanmar. And the second one is the tactical hedging. The Professor Reiterer's the question is the point was well taken. I actually had the same kind of feeling too. And then at this point, I think from the 2016 to 2020 or 2019, Japan could conduct the tactical hedging. But then over time, Japan needs to consolidate some of the principles and some of the institutional framework. And that actually narrowed the range of their strategic choice. So in that sense, I think Japan has not like as flexible as it used to be. They could actually, they used to be able to conduct tactical hedging, but like not probably like anymore. Probably like from now on, from the I think the 2020, 2021, they could actually take more kind of principle oriented diplomacy. That's for the tactical hedging, and ROK, the South Korea. Yes, the South Korea is really, really important. And also, I think like it's actually go with the European countries, EU too. Their connection with these the like-minded countries are really important. And then they have their stake in the Indo-Pacific as well. What I actually perceive about the kind of institutionalization is not like the Quad is not necessarily exclusive to those countries. This is why like the Quad is trying to create the Quad Plus. And if there is a certain kind of the common vision or like some kind of common interest came in, probably like the framework could expand. So it's not like necessarily the Quad. I think like it could be the Quad Plus can be the one of the core frameworks in the institutions. But what I think the need to actually think about in terms of the institutionalization of Indo-Pacific is the division of labor. There are so many kind of institutions in the Indo-Pacific, like ASEAN, East Asia Summit, those kind of ASEAN-led institutions, EURA, and then SAC, the Quad Plus, and then the etc. So if we just kind of reinventing the wheel, then the probably like it's not going to help, and then the probably like the institutional competition going on, and then they may actually have some kind of the rivalry, and then also political rivalry, or they may actually reduce the efficiency and effectiveness of the institution. So what we need to do is probably like the institutional dialogue as well, inter-institutional dialogue, such as Quad plus EU and Quad plus the ASEAN. I think if we actually do this, probably like we could actually find out what is the important role for each institution, and then what actually the interest each institution has in the particular geographical scope. So I think the Quad is just I perceive Quad is an important institution, but it's just kind of one of the institutions in the Pacific. And the NATO, yes. I'm not really sure about the NATO's connection yet. Probably like I could actually study it, but like, I don't see. I don't know if I'm wrong. Then please correct me. But like, I don't see any kind of the statement provided by NATO about the Indo-Pacific yet. So if there is a certain kind of political willingness or so, maybe we can actually talk about it. But unless the NATO is interested in that, then probably like we might not actually, we will do some kind of other institutions which shows the interest in the Pacific. So that's the one answer to that. Um, on the Chinese human rights, Hong Kong and Taiwan, this is actually really contentious point. And then I'm actually still like debating myself too, because probably like if you ask the same question 2 years ago or so, maybe I would say yes, that's important. But then probably like the Japan is going to meet with the Xi Jinping, Japanese Prime Minister is going to meet the Xi Jinping, and then they actually could talk about what the best kind of practice they could actually pursue. So because they are it was before the COVID-19, there was the plan that the Japanese Prime Minister was going to meet with the Xi Jinping and then discuss the future cooperation of the Japan-China relations. But then it was actually postponed because of the COVID-19. And then this year, 2021, probably like it's not gonna happen anytime soon. So if that's the case, then the window of opportunity to talk with each other actually is diminished. I mean, the closing. And then if Japan started to more kind of align with the United States and then also the other countries in terms of the human rights and then in Hong Kong and also the Xinjiang, maybe Japan might take the tougher stance. I don't know if it might not necessarily the economic sanction also, but it might actually give the more kind of the express the grave concerns over the Chinese practice. Okay, the last one, the Taiwan contingency. That actually depends on the what kind of aggression they take. And if China is taking the kind of more like a really aggressive military invention to Taiwan, also there should be some kind of like spillover in the near area. And then the Japan is much closer to the Taiwan than the any other countries. So then the Japan needs to react to that because it's going to be the some contingency surrounding the Japan. So I think it will not probably like against the China or like protecting Taiwan, but again somehow like the Japan needs to involve in order to maintain the stability in the Taiwan Strait. And also obviously the United States is going to come in. So if the US is coming in, probably like the Japan needs to actually coordinate its policy for the logistical support and so on and so forth. So this Taiwan contingency is really tricky for Japan, but like, I think if that happens, Japan is inevitably got involved.
Very good, Kei. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. We still have many questions for you, which is good because it shows the great interest in the issue. So I would like to list some, and before asking you for the reply, I will turn to Michael for few elements on the EU and NATO question. So for you, Kei, for the next round of question, we'll start with a very interesting point on the state of the debate in Japan, domestic debate regarding FOIP, its relevance, and maybe sustainability. You see a big consensus at the academic and political level on FOIP, or is there any debate, any question on this? Also, FOIP, I believe, is much about the diversification of Japan's strategic partners. So is it also a consensus, or are there some voices saying that, well, Japan should better focus or refocus on its alliance with the US? Second bunch of questions on ASEAN and the reaction of ASEAN to FOIP. Have you seen a unitary reaction or differentiated reaction? And I would like to add, do you think that Japan is seen as an alternative to the US and China, or as a US proxy? We also discussed the RCEP, the fact that this economic agreement was adopted last December around China, but not only. So do you see any difficulty or tension or convergence between the FOIP and RCEP? And finally, some question on the role and the place of Africa. As you said, Prime Minister Abe announced FOIP in Kenya. So how Africa is fitting into FOIP vision right now? And there was also an initiative of the Asia-Africa Growth Corridor between Japan and India in order to try to provide a kind of alternative to BRI in Africa. Is there any progress on this? And there is a bonus question, I would say, on the Arctic policy of Japan and his articulation on FOIP, but we are going quite far there, so you're not absolutely obliged to answer this one. And so before, I would like to turn to Michael. Michael, I believe you have additional comment on what the EU can do and NATO can do in the region and how they can coordinate.
Well, thank you. Just a word on what we started off in discussing is institutionalization, which is a wrong expression. I think there is nobody has the intention really to create an Indo-Pacific institution, organization, or whatever. However, it is important to use platforms, existing platforms, and how to connect them in a sort of networked diplomacy. So I think the opening from Quad to Quad Plus is not a real opening. This is more a discussion whether Korea and India are ready to join an arrangement which they perceive to be China containing. So that's an Asian issue basically. If we talk to opening up, then it would be a Quad plus plus, and the plus plus being the European dimension. But I think there it would be much better to use existing institutions or dialogues like the East Asia Summit, where the European Union would like to become a member for quite some time, and which also has this element of ASEAN centrality, which is important. So I think this is something to consider. I think the importance of linking up with the European Union is also in this Africa dimension, which you mentioned, because the EU has a increasing partnership with Africa, and therefore to connect and have synergies, I think would be very important. The role of NATO, I think, could only be an indirect one, because strengthening NATO and bigger contributions from the European members of NATO is to make sure that in case of crisis, the European Europe can take care to a large degree of itself, and therefore would allow US troops or other troops to be used in another area. But Asia is for NATO an out of area issue, and I don't see presently any movement to become operational or more concrete. In addition to the existing partnerships which NATO has, but this is an information exchange and not operational in the sense of providing security. So I think we should talk about platforms for interaction, platforms for cooperation. As Kai rightly said, there are so many, and there's also one which is completely encompassing everybody except the United States, and that's the Asia-Europe meeting, ASEM. So one has to be, and ASEM, by the way, has a strong interest for 2 years already now in connectivity. So there is an inherent link. So network diplomacy is really the challenge, and I think this is something we have to focus on, and it's better to call it that way than institutionalization, because that could give a wrong impression. Thank you.
Very good. Now, Kei.
All right.
Welcome.
Okay. Thank you very much. So yes, the just the yeah, going through the what I got about the FOIP relevance among the Japanese the policy circles and also the academics. I think there's no debate whether like we should drop the FOIP. So what we actually talk about is basically the how we could actually sustain the FOIP, and then how we could actually continuously engage in this area of the region. So in that sense, I don't think there's a big debate about the FOIP's relevance, but then rather I think what we need to do within this kind of concept, because this is a great opportunity for Japan to expand its strategic horizon, and then connect with the other countries in the region. So maybe I think the FOIP is continue. Maybe the term FOIP might change or in the future. But then I think the Japan's engagement is going to be the kind of the default point for the Japanese foreign policy. That's the one. And then the diversification of the Japan's the kind of partnership diplomacy. I don't think there's any opposition toward the Japan's the diversification because the Japan still think much of the U.S.-Japan alliance, and then the Japan always express U.S.-Japan alliance as a core of the Japan's diplomacy. So in that sense, that is like the basic core. And then what Japan could do, like the Japan is actually thinking what Japan could do to fight or like further strengthen the kind of Japan US led the community building the efforts in the Pacific or so. So in that sense, I think the diversification of the Japanese diplomacy could actually help United States as well. The United States also like welcomes the Japan's kind of the new diplomatic initiative because if we are considering about the US kind of relative, not like the complete or absolute decline, but like the relative decline vis-a-vis China, then the United States cannot actually deal with everything in the global affairs. So then probably like the burden sharing, which the United States always advocated for, has to be kind of taken. And then the United States is seeing the Japanese kind of diplomacy diversification as the kind of beneficial for them too. So in that sense, there's no kind of they are not like mutually exclusive. I think from the Japanese official point of view, it's more kind of mutually reinforcing. ASEAN's reaction, I don't think there's a unitary reaction toward the FOIP. The FOIP was actually misunderstood at the beginning. Say the Singapore foreign minister once said we are not going to get into the Quad because the Quad is actually seen as the kind of probably like it could be the anti-China groupings. So that the Singapore actually was expressing a really concern about these groupings, and then they were not like sure if they could actually support the FOIP. But then interestingly, the Cambodia actually supported the FOIP before. I mean, at the beginning, at the first place. So in that sense, the Cambodia's concept of the FOIP is more kind of infrastructure development, and then if they support it, they could actually get the more kind of the development assistance. So in that sense, I think the Japan has the more there's no kind of unitary reaction from the ASEAN. The Japan is seen as the no alternative, but then the ASEAN country actually see the Japan as the important partner for them. But then it's not like the important partner because they are not threatening to the Southeast Asian country. But then that means the Japan does not really have the such power. I mean, like as much power as the China or the United States. So they are not going to see it as the alternative. But then I think the Japan could be a partner that has this strong link with the United States, not necessarily the US proxy. So yeah, I saw actually Eva. So is that actually the time constraint? Is it okay to just continue? Or? Okay. So so the RCEP economic agreement. I think the RCEP and the FOIP are not again like mutually exclusive because the FOIP actually promote the free trade, and then if they are kind of interested and also principle matches, they could actually cooperate with each other. And then the in that connection, the Japan is also facilitating the CPTPP, and then that is another actually the trade framework which has the higher standard. And then China actually showed once interested in the joining it, and then probably like if the China actually meet that kind of standard, the Japan is welcoming that. So that's actually not like mutually exclusive. Like I think the friction point is the whether they could actually comply with the rules of the these kind of the frameworks. Africa is really important. I think the FOIP vision actually again like the studies from the Africa because they consider the connectivity between Asia and Africa is really important, and then this still continues. So in that sense, the Japan actually keep doing this, but then probably like the reason why Africa is somewhat isolated despite Japan's geographical scope, including the Africa and Asia, is the other countries' kind of vision or like geographical scope is completely different. For example, the United States, when they say in the Pacific, it is actually the western part of the India to the entire Pacific, the oceans. So that means the western part of the Indian Ocean is not going to be included. So they are not actually including the Africa. So the technically speaking, they don't actually have the kind of area of cooperation in terms of the FOIP toward the Africa. So that's why probably like the Japan is actually doing the itself by itself, or like the kind of cooperating with India to create a corridor. And then this actually connects to the another question. The connectivity between the Asia and Africa, Asian-African Economic Corridor with the India. I know the this project, but I'm not sure how how much progress they made so far. So I don't think I can answer this question. And also the last question, Arctic. That is actually open to the question. I don't really know yet because the that's the I mean like the new thing. Probably like the BRI, China incorporated Arctic kind of Silk Road or something, but then the FOIP hasn't actually done this yet. So the right now like it's more they're focusing on the maritime the sea lines of communication in the Indo-Pacific and then Pacific Oceans. Thank you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Kei. I would like to acknowledge your excellent presentation and your effort to engage and respond to the many questions that we had. We did our best to address most of them. I apologize for those who were left behind. Maybe one of the next session we can talk about it. So again, all my thanks to Kei and Michael for their excellent presentation and comments, and I will give the floor to my colleague Eva for the last words.
Thank you so much, Céline, and allow me to join you also in thanking our two amazing speakers, Kei and Michael. It has been a real delight to have you. I'm so happy to see that we have such an impressive turnout by the number of questions. I think it really proves that there is an interest in the European environment in the issues of Indo-Pacific. That's very reassuring to us and to our program. If you haven't had enough, I would encourage you to follow the following lectures. As you know, this is just an introduction to the issue of Indo-Pacific. And many of the questions with the issues that have been raised today will be looked at much more in details, notably the China-Japan relations already next Friday. We will follow up with Japan-US alliance in 2 weeks, and finally close with the new kind of relationship in the Indo-Pacific space, which is the one between Japan and India. And if you cannot wait until next Friday, you can always turn into one of our public seminars. There is one already on Monday on the EU and Japan relationship in the post-COVID. We're being optimistic here, post-COVID world. So you can see that in general, our March schedule is going to be rather busy. Some of the issues that have been addressed also on the transatlantic cooperation in the Indo-Pacific is something that we will be looking at, and you can tune in on March 18 for our public seminar with the Center for Strategic and International Studies in Washington. And of course, if you lose track of all this, you can always follow us on Twitter at Japan Program VUB. You can listen to this lecture again and to all the other lectures that we uploaded to our YouTube channel on Japan Program VUB. And you can register to all these events and follow our activities on our new website, which is part of the Brussels School of Governance and its Center for Security, Diplomacy and Strategy. With this, I would like to thank you once more for your participation, for your questions, for your patience, our two speakers for joining us today for this amazing debate. Stay well, stay safe, and I look forward to seeing you soon in one of our events. Bye-bye.